Namaste and a warm welcome to you all from the Hindu Academy team. My name is Nishit Kotak. I'm here every Saturday with you all at 2 o'clock BST. And thank you so much for joining us today, wherever you're watching us from, whether it is on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, or anywhere else. Today, we're diving into the subject of something that's quite intriguing, somewhat controversial, and undoubtedly a major part of the Hindu culture: arranged marriages. So we aim to explore the various aspects of this tradition, its roots, its relevance, and its evolution in modern world. We're going to discuss how it fits into the contemporary lives of Hindus around the world, and indeed how it is viewed by society at large. So to guide us through this rich and complex subject, we have our esteemed panel of experts. We've got Sita Ben, Vijay Bhai, Manish Bhai. And before we delve into the topic, we're going to be viewing a focus video that will provide some insight into this topic. And then after that, we will open up for a Q&A with our panel of experts. And as always, we welcome and encourage you all to share your thoughts, your comments, your questions in the live chat area of whichever platform you're viewing this video on. So your contribution always enriches our conversation. And lastly, we request you to kindly share this live stream link with your friends and family so they can tune in and participate in this conversation as well. So without any further delay, let's get started by watching the focus topic video for today, which is all on arranged marriages. Enjoy this, and we'll be back soon.
In India, arranged marriage is quite a big thing. What does Hinduism say about this?
Yes. You see, the world is moving. We are a living tradition. We claim to be a living tradition. Means all the time evolving, changing with the needs of society. In the earlier days, the best way a person can find a match, a partner, was perhaps to allow the parents to put out their searchlight looking for the right kind of partner. Because in the earlier days, there was no kind of easy way of interacting with other, female or male, etc. So the only way you could interact or perhaps find the right partner was asking your parents or your family members to look out for a partner for you. And they meant well. So they would look out and say, look, this boy, etc., or this girl is suitable for my daughter or son, and because they come from the right background, they are educated, they are civilized people. So once you have that kind of ethos in mind, then the parents will find the right kind of a partner for you. This was the idea. I'm talking about the ancient idea. Things are changing dramatically. And in fact, I'll crack with a humor. I go to some of these English girls' schools and I ask them, how do you find a partner? It's not easy. So they say, well, we go clubbing. I say, you go clubbing? Those guys are looking for one night stand. You're not going to find a suitable partner. They're drunk. They're just looking for a quick fling. So how are you going to get a good partner? Oh dear, Mr. Lakhani. In this case, we go cruising the libraries, hoping that they'll find some, clever boy, looking in. I said, look, but there you find nerds, with these big pimples and with thick glasses. You want to marry that? Where do you find a good partner? They said, we don't know. What do you do? I said, we are very fortunate. Talking about the ancient Hindu tradition, not the modern one. We say we allow the parents to start setting out the searchlight, looking for a partner even before ready for marriage. So when you're 18 or 19 or 20, your parents are already on the lookout for the right partner for you. And these searchlights are very vast. They don't just locally, just to the locality. They are international. They can find a partner for you in Canada, in Australia, New Zealand, Europe, India. Their searchlights have got a huge network. So they'll find their suitable partner. And is there forced marriage? There's no forced marriage. Then the parents will say, okay, I found a suitable person, my boy. It's time for you to get married and settle down. And this girl is beautiful. She comes from a really lovely family, very civilized people. So you must meet this girl. And the boy said, yeah, okay, let her text me. And the parents said, no, you text the girl first. And so they say, let's meet up in this cafe and discuss possibilities. So they meet up. And very likely the boy or the girl will reject, saying, no, no good, he's a nerd, I don't want him, he's really a male chauvinist pig, I don't want him. So they might reject the boy or the girl, and then the situation stops, and the parents again take out the searchlight and find another partner. So this goes on. The boy or the girl are allowed to reject the choice the parents are imposing. They're allowed to reject, and that's what happens half the time. And then somehow the things work together, and they both feel they are good partners, and then marriage can take place. This is the way it progresses. So I tell the youngsters, the English girls, I say, look, you don't know how fortunate these Indian boys and girls are, because their parents are the dating agency, finding them different partners for every weekend. Say, go and meet this girl. No, this girl, no good, don't worry, meet this girl next week. So they get a different girlfriend every weekend. So they're spoiled for choice. And this is the downside. They don't want to get married because maybe next week they get a better girl. So they keep wandering around. I'm finding this in reality. This arranged marriage used to be a very wonderful way of arranging people of similar background to meet up and see if things click. There is not forced marriage, be very careful. But the modern world is changing so fast, so dramatically. I mean, in this day and age, you don't ask your parents to look for a partner. You know what you do, you go on the internet. You got all these websites choosing partners for you, and you get the pictures and the profile, and you can interact with them on the internet. But of course, it's a dangerous exercise, as a lot of girls and boys find out. You might meet really wackos or really weird people, so they'll warn you not to meet these kind of people in kind of secluded places, and be very careful, because this method can be hijacked by weirdos kind of cruising the internet, looking for, to do serious mischief. So we'll be very careful.
Brilliant. So that was an interesting video that talks about a cultural thing that we have in Hinduism on arranged marriages. I hope you found this video interesting and it provokes some thought and sets a good starting point for our conversation today. So let's dive deeper into this. So Vijay Bhai, Sita Ben, and Manish Bhai, welcome to today's call. Folks, these are our resident experts. So let's get started with today's call. Sita Ben, the question for you is this. How do Hindu principles guide the practice of arranged marriages?
So I mean, that's a wonderful question, because obviously choosing your life partner is one of the biggest life decisions you're going to make. So it needs to be taken very seriously, and you need to really think it through carefully. And I think what Hindu Dharma says is that make sure whoever you do decide to choose, make sure that when you do sort of start a relationship with somebody, make sure that you're always looking out for each other, because it's just not going to work if you're constantly just thinking about yourself all the time. You're here to sort of start the building blocks of a family unit. You're starting a whole new life. You're a grown up now, you have to start a whole new life. And it's no longer all about you. You know, when you're a child, it's all about you. You know, your parents are showering attention on you. They're doing everything for you. But now you're kind of taking a step up into the world of grown-ups, and you're having to take on more sort of responsibility. And part of that responsibility is choosing a partner who you can always put their needs before yours, and they can put your needs before their own needs. And it has to be a two-way sort of, stream, like a current. It has to keep flowing. Otherwise, it's just going to crack up. It's going to fall apart. If you're both just living your own separate lives and you're not really doing anything for each other or working together to do stuff, to make things work, to build a household, it's just not going to work. So I think it's incredibly important. That's what Dharma would say, always putting the needs of others before yourself. And that's the whole way that the family unit can work. Vijay Bhai, Manish Bhai?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question, Nishit Bhai. So I think I agree with Sita. So I think the thing is that the idea of arranged marriage is it may sound a bit, old fashioned or whatever, but it's actually very crucial. As Sita mentioned, that you want to find a partner who you get along with, who is compatible, and then you're willing to do things for them, and vice versa. Sometimes you can get a partner saying, okay, I like to party. I say, no, I like to read or something. If it doesn't really match, you're not really into it to work with your partner, or at least do things for them. So in many ways, the idea of partner is a life partner that you really want to live for them, as Sita mentioned. That's very critical. And I think in that sense, arranged marriage is actually a very good idea. I mean, also in the ancient times, as you mentioned in the video, that quite often, if you're from the same village, you know everybody, and most likely they're your cousins. Quite a few are related to you, so it's very difficult. So of course, you need people to give you, information about people outside the, your own zone, and you need some really good information who they are. So that's why this idea has always been there, because you have to look far and wide, so you don't kind of intermarry, so to say, and then you need help to find this information. It's not as easy as it sounds. I mean, I have, sorry to say that I know one or two people who are like in their 50s, they have never got married because either they think I'll find somebody else, a very, fussy, or actually they never had that help from their parents. So that help is so valuable. And look, the fact is that who will care more about you more than your parents? They genuinely care about you more than anybody else, right? So they're going to really think from themselves. If somebody I raised from a very young age, I want them to be happy. So you may think, oh, why are the parents bothering? Actually, they really got their heart for you. That's the reason why they're doing it. So there's tremendous benefit in this idea of arranged marriages. Manish bhai?
Yes, I agree with you, Vijay Bhai, Sitaben. Arranged marriage is a start of Grihasthashram, and you need to be very careful selecting a partner. And what we are saying is finding a partner is quite hard, and some people struggle, as Vijay Bhai said. Some people, even I have some friends who are in now 40s and still not found anybody. And even in India, the situation is the same. So now it's a big, seems to be a big problem. We are all technologically connected, but when it comes to finding the right person, it seems to be a struggle, and it shouldn't be. And I think arranged marriage in a way helps. Not everyone is going to fall in love and find somebody suitable. So if the parents or some relatives can help with this process, so much the better, I think.
So we have a question from a viewer. The question is basically, is there any mention of arranged marriage in any Sanatan Dharma religious texts? Or is it just more or less a cultural thing made up by society to meet the requirements of the time? Vijay bhai.
Yeah. So actually, all the Dharma Shastras, I mean, some are really old, some are really outdated. But all the Dharma Shastras go quite in detail on how to find a partner and what to do. They must do this. They must have actually focus a lot on the family as well, family values. The parents must be twice born, all these simple things like put on Janoi, whatever. But of course, this changes with time. So I think more than anything else is tradition. We have to keep in mind that these rules are actually in the, in the Smriti scriptures, not the Shruti. So there is no fixed rules as such, but generally through tradition, through time and tradition, this has kind of been an established norm that your relatives, your parents, they will help you find the best partner. So that, as Sita mentioned, you can start, the next stage of your life in a much better manner. Because believe me, as you know, I'm married now, how many, 30 years now? And the thing is this, that if you get it wrong, you're going to be in trouble, right? And it's a very big decision in your life. So it's best to get as much help as you can. I mean, of course, if you fall in love and you have love marriage, that's fine. If you're absolutely sure that things are going to work out and you're compatible. And then the key thing that what Sita mentioned really carries a lot of weight, that you want to live for your partner. That's the biggest thing you can do. And believe me, it's not easy. I mean, we all of us spend time, on Saturday doing this. Your partner support you, it will not work, right? So you need a partner who actually kind of lives for you and said, okay, look, I'll support you in your activity. And of course, vice versa. And that is the true, testimony of a proper marriage, a proper friendship. And remember, the last step is lifelong friendship. This is what we really need. Sita?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. So, I mean, in terms of the Shruti scriptures, that it focuses more on the philosophy, and this isn't really philosophy, it's more sort of social sort of circumstances and arrangements. So as Vijay Bhai said, it falls under the Smriti scriptures, and the Smriti scriptures are meant to keep changing. They're not like hard and fast rules. They have to keep evolving because society keeps evolving, people's mindsets keep evolving. So like for so many, you know, a few hundred years, like this system of arranged marriage was very valuable, very helpful, because it wasn't just the marriage of two people, it's the marriage of two families. They have to sort of be interconnected with each other, you know, and helping to raise the children, the grandchildren, all of that. So it was seen as a marriage of two families. But nowadays things have changed slightly because people are not so keen on the idea of their parents looking for somebody. They're more likely to want to go online, as Dad said in the video, or find somebody at university or whatever. But it's becoming more and more difficult. And I'm actually finding, like, for example, with a lot of my close friends, most of them are not married. Most of them are either very happy to just be single and they just go around trekking mountains and traveling around the world, or some of them are just living with their partners. They're just not married. And I think that's just the way that the world is evolving now, is that people sometimes feel that there is no real need for a formalized legal contract between two people. Just, I love you, you love me, and we live together, and that's the end of the story. So I think that seems to be the growing trend these days. And even before, I've noticed, even before people get married, they start to live with each other just to, I guess, test the ground and see, you know, are we compatible? Can we live together without having a fight every day? They want to check if that's suitable or not. But I mean, I know in my generation, for example, my parents would not have wanted me to live with my partner prior to marriage. They would just not have wanted that. But now, that was like so long ago now, but times have changed now, and that's what people are doing. So we have to be flexible and keep evolving with the times. Manish Bhai?
No, Sitaben, Vijay Bhai, you covered it amazingly. Nothing further to add.
Fabulous. So I'm going to move the rest of this conversation in the context of today's time. So, like, how would a modern person view these, this conversation we're having? So let's look at stats. The current stats show that arranged marriages have an overall lower rate of divorce than love marriages. Is this a valid argument for arranged marriages, or are there other factors at play? Sitaben.
Yes, I mean, it's very, very difficult to know. I mean, I guess we have to look at the pros and cons of everything. So the pros of an arranged marriage is that you feel secure that it's not just one or two people making this decision. There's like a lot more heads involved. So the heads can, you know, in a way, all these heads combined together can make a better decision, possibly. And also there is a compatibility with the families as well. You know, they have to know each other, get along with each other. So possibly that could be a reason. I mean, it's very difficult to speculate in this way. And in terms of love marriages, obviously there is that natural love between two people, which is something great, something to celebrate. But if, for example, the families don't like each other, then that could be a cause for tension, that could be a cause for arguments and all sorts of difficulties. So that could be a potential reason why maybe there's a less chance of success in love marriages. It's very difficult to speculate. But
I'm going to recap what you just said. You said the decision to get married on the two sections could be based on a love marriage. It's usually based on passion and physical attraction. Whereas arranged marriages focus primarily on compatibility, family values, long-term relationship goals, and therefore that may be a better way in the long term than the love marriages. What about cultural continuity versus personal freedom? So arranged marriages, they're a means of cultural continuity, right? Maintaining a social structure, while love marriages are about personal freedom and individualism. So how do these differing values impact the success of a marriage? So Vijay Bhai? Have a go at this.
These are all very, very subjective questions. But just to mention something, Nishit, I think the thing is, chemistry is one thing, but to run the gauntlet for a couple, for your entire lifetime, that's a different thing. So if you're not compatible and you don't have similar values, or at least you admire values in your partner, even though you may not have them, that you're willing to sacrifice for, so she can have those values and preserve those values, that is very critical, right? So, I mean, personally, I think chemistry is one thing, but it's far more than that, right? So the idea of individualism is a bit tricky, because it only works if both of them again accept that this is how we are. But then, it's, to me, that's not really, personally, I would rather live for a wedding where people are living for each other. That really comes out, brings out the really power of your marriage, of the bond. Because that means you really love somebody so much, they're willing to sacrifice for each other. And that's the beauty about this, the strength of these arranged marriages. But having said that, I mean, I know one or two people, as Sita mentioned, who have lived together for 20 years, have children, absolutely no problem. They got together. So compatibility is also very important. Chemistry is one thing, but compatibility is also very important. Otherwise, it won't work. Regarding the cultural thing, we have to be careful, because culture is changing very fast. I mean, I have tried very hard to get my kids to understand Indian culture. They've all been literally forced to go to Hinduism, classes, whatever. And I take them to my hall, with the village cultural hall and all that stuff. But they are growing up in an environment where they're exposed to other cultures as well. So it's difficult to tell them, look, no, you must be stodgy and stay in this culture. It just doesn't work. So culture is a very evolving thing. I think the key thing is that you marry a partner that you know that you're going to spend a life with, because you're compatible. So I think that really carries a bit of weight as well.
Yeah, you mentioned about culture, and something just springs to mind, how our culture has evolved. So I've been involved with my community organization for, God knows, since I was 16 or 15 or something like that. I've probably done well over 12,000 hours of community service over the years with various organizations. One thing I noted was, like, there was a point in time, if a lady from our community gets married to another community, then she's no longer invited to community functions because she's no longer a community member. But that time has now changed. People have said, hang on, she's still an ex-community member. Doesn't really matter. She's still one of us. Just because she got married doesn't make her change into anything else different. And so society is evolving, becoming better at recognizing where the shortcomings were. But yeah, there was a time where that was very disappointing to see. But yeah, so let's get back to the topic again. So, Manish bhai, what are some of the common misconceptions about arranged marriages in Hindu concept, in the Hindu culture, that you would like to address?
I think one of the most thing is people tend to associate forced marriage to arranged marriage, and that is not true. From what I have seen in my community and people around me, is generally, as Ajay bhai explained in the video, it's parents introduce, and girl and boy meet each other, and if they feel comfortable, they get married, and there is no force involved. Generally, there is no force involved. Obviously, there can be parents who are quite pussy and who wants to get it their way, and they are very keen on certain people, and they try to persuade their child in certain ways. But most of the time, it is not a forced marriage, and it's a good I think way of progressing, especially if you are shy and you don't go and start conversation with people. You might find hard to find somebody who you can click together and find a suitable person. So that way, arranged marriage can help find the right partner for you.
So Sita, society has been changing. The youngsters of today, the people who are going to get married very soon in the near few years, sometimes they are in a different form of communication than us, right? We may think that they have friends, they have things. We can see from the rise of, for example, dating apps, that society has changed a lot. Is there still a place for arranged marriages in modern society?
I mean, I hope there is in a way, because it feels like in a way, a wholesome way of finding a partner. It's not something, you know, that you just pick somebody out of a crowd. It's something that's really been thought through. But having said that, society is changing, and a lot of young people these days, they may say, Mom and Dad, you know what? I don't want you to look for a partner for me. I'm an independent woman or man or whatever. I can find my own partner. And I guess that's the kind of, it feels like that's the way society is going. Everyone is very independent. They want to make their own decisions. They don't want mom and dad involved. So I think society is changing in that way, and they're more likely to find somebody at university maybe, or in their place of work. And things are changing in that sense, that they feel like they can make the right decision themselves. And more, you know, even these days, like I was at the bank yesterday, for example, and the lady I was chatting to, she was like, yeah, my daughter got married last year. It was just somebody she met off Instagram, and they just started liking each other's photos, and then they're really happy now. So I'm happy. And you're like, well, great, maybe this is the new way. But I think it's important to keep both avenues open, keep both doors open. You sort of, I guess, in a way, increase your chances of finding the right person. But obviously, these decisions are very sort of personal, very family oriented. So each person has to choose whichever pathway works for them the best, I guess. Vijay, Manish, please.
Yeah, it's a very interesting question. I mean, personally, I think there's still a lot of value in having arranged marriages. I mean, I have seen a lot of people who have said that they're independent and will find, and they get up becoming so fussy, and then eventually they're in their 30s and they just go with the best person they can get, because after 30, you know, it's difficult to find the best person you have. So I think perhaps you need both. You can try yourself, also get help. But I think one thing that I've noticed, the key thing that really helps modern children in making decisions is parental support. Really makes a difference, because they always worry that I'm independent, I have to work for X number of years, who look after my children, and they keep on delaying that. You know, I have to make enough money to buy a house, and then, you know, by the time they're in the mid-40s, they're still struggling, and it never happened, right? So in that sense, I think parents have a big role to play, because we live in a world where people are so individualistic, and they're not either willing to get help from others, or at least some parents are willing to help. And that is a key, I think, breakdown. That's something we need to really keep in mind on that. Please help your children when they find a partner, even if they're married for their own choice. Please support them through it. Then it'll make it easier for them, and it'll help everybody. Yeah. So that's the key thing. So we need to, we can't just say that, oh, I'm individual and I'll make one decision. I think even then we should all kind of work together. It's a very, very serious business. Yeah. So Manish bhai.
Agree with you, Vijay. Why we need to, yes, help the children, and this use of apps, and it is here to stay, and it can help. Hopefully, you know, you can know more about a person before getting to, you know, starting the conversation and getting to know them in person. So in a way, it's a really useful thing, and in that way, you are not using people who are sort of trying to maybe make you go in a one particular way. It's like an individual can see for themselves what is the other person like on piece of paper, and before they get actually to meet. So in a way, that use of apps and internet is really good. Now, only downside, as Jay said, is there are people who are portraying who are not truly what they are, and there can be cases of you know, someone actually manipulating system. So that's what we need to be careful about. And that's where if the person is supported by the parents or the friends, and hopefully this kind of problems can be avoided.
Amazing. So on the one hand, we've got the influence of Western culture. You know, as the world becomes a global village, Western influence becomes more prevalent. Is the concept of an arranged marriage becoming outdated in today's modern times? So that's one thing. And then the other side is what Vijay Bhai said is, you know, on the one hand, you've got the wisdom and the thought process behind an arranged marriage versus the individual freedoms of liberty of somebody making their own choice. And growing up in a Western world, this concept of arranged marriage probably doesn't sit very well with them, but the idea behind it is sound. So those are the two things that you know, as a parent or as a person who's going to maybe counsel somebody who's going through this process, you need to balance where you come from versus where they're going. There's a very fine balance. So also another thing you have to note is that the definition of marriage is also changing. In this age where we've got not only LGBTQIA plus, and it keeps growing, you know, people want to identify in different ways. And so now we have the definition of marriage that has evolved to encompass same-sex unions, cohabitation. How do arranged marriages fit within all of this? You know, so that's something else to consider. But one thing I want to bring out into the current times is it's not all doom and gloom. How have modern arranged marriages evolved? I myself had an arranged marriage, right? That was 20-something years ago, and the best decision I ever made. But I do not see the youngsters of today doing what I did. But how do you think, in a modern context, arranged marriages have evolved? Sitaben?
I mean, it's possible that, you know, people these days may not necessarily want their parents to choose them a partner. Maybe they'd be more comfortable for their friends to set them up. Maybe they'd be more comfortable for a older brother or sister, or, you know, another sibling or a cousin or whatever setting them up, maybe. So it doesn't have to just be the parents who kind of set up people with each other. So, you know, they can all sort of help each other out in a way. And yeah, if social media is there, you've got this idea of arranged marriages. So it's all sort of like in the mix now. And it's one of those things like, I mean, if I was in that boat, I think it would be good to keep all the options open, just because you don't know. And there's also, I mean, it's just, maybe that's just part of my nature, but I always want to do something that my parents and my family would be happy about as well, because I wouldn't want to go into something that my parents would be disapproving of, because I couldn't live like that. But for some people, they're much more independent minded, and they would want to do that. And if it works for them, good luck for them. But I think also another thing is people are sort of taking more time about stepping into marriage. They're getting married a lot later because, you know, in the olden days, people used to get married in their mid to early 20s, you know, and that was like when most people got married. And then by their mid 20s, they've already had like 1 or 2 kids, and, you know, everything was very, very different. Now people are getting married in their 30s, mid 30s, late 30s. I think because part of the reason possibly is the change in the power dynamics between men and women, because in the olden days, women were just expected to be, I don't know, secretaries or just be housewives, and they weren't expected to do anything more than that career-wise. But now girls are like, hang on, you know what? Before I get married, I want to travel the world. I want to, you know, I want to have my own career established. I want to be financially independent. And they want to focus on that rather than saying, let me get married as soon as I finish my studies, let me get married. So there's so many changing sort of dynamics involved. And even the whole system of marriage has evolved. Like if we look at our parents' and grandparents' generations, like there were so many ways that the house was run, which would just not be acceptable today. I mean, I've said this before, and it makes me really mad, this whole system of when you have a family visit, you know, in an Indian household like 20 odd years ago. And then, you know, all the women are so busy cooking, cleaning in the kitchen. The men are just sitting there in the sitting room. The women have to hover around the men while they're serving them food. And then the men get up, don't even clean their plates. The women have to go clean their plates, eat the cold leftovers, and then just go and sit there exhausted. It makes me so mad. And, you know, that worked 20 plus years ago. But now, like, can you imagine people these days doing that? They would be like, no way, I'm not doing that. Husbands, get involved, do some cooking and cleaning. So, yeah, there's just loads of different changing circumstances all the time. Vijay, Manishbhai?
Yeah, I think the thing is that I think we live at one time in a very patriarchal system. And it's true that in a way, some things are really good as which have evolved. Like, for example, because women are now financially empowered, education, also empowered education. So I think we have to accept that the requirements, the needs will be different which is a good thing, I think, in that sense. But I think the thing is, we have, as Sita said, we have to keep all the options open. Of course, there's a problem that sometimes people get married so late that they really can't have children or get difficult having children. So all this has to be balanced in such a way. But again, as I mentioned, one thing important is that support they get from their friends and from the family is very important. I know so many cases today where, because at one time, if you notice that, like my mother would never accept me to go and meet girls on my own. Or if I'm going out, I'm going to go with my older friends or boys. Like with girls, she'll freak out, right? But nowadays, my kids, they mix with both boys and girls. So then it's quite likely, Sita mentioned, sometimes friends will tell you, or with the friends you meet, you can find a partner, which is actually good in many ways. If that happens to my kids, less stress on me, right? And it's just going to find it. But the key thing is still, I think it really helps if parents support them, because I think quite often some kids, they don't want to have children, don't get married because they're worried that if they have a career, then if they get married, that career will break, because who will look after the kids, who will support them? And that can be a problem. So, I mean, I've told my kids, if you have kids early and you're in career, go for it. We will support you with the kids. Then you see the options open now. Otherwise, they're struggling. And then sometimes you don't realize that a lot of kids internally they struggle a lot. They don't know what to do because they somehow feel either going to be burdened on their parents, or they somehow feel that if I don't get a career, I don't make enough money, how will I raise my kids? Who will pay for the fees? So I think in that sense, if you live in a community or live in in a place where you have a lot of relationships, that really boosts your options. Then I think you have much more possibility of making a decision which will suit you. Yeah, Manish bhai?
Yes, I agree with you, Vijay bhai there. That support needs to be there. And the reason I think now modern people tend to think is that they want to make their career, they want to have the house, and then they want to get married and have children. So by that time, they are reached about 30, 35. And a third of the life is gone. If the parent support or the relative support is there, then people can have relationship anyway. They live together anyway. So if this happens and the support is there, I mean, people can grow the career together as well, and make the family together as well, and buy the house together. I think this focus on career and buying a house is kind of getting in a ways people's marriage and life in a way, and it shouldn't be there. And that if the support is there, and hopefully they can get married earlier, and then they can have children when they want it, rather than if it's too late. That is a problem as well.
Fabulous. So folks, you're watching Hindu Academy live. We meet here every Saturday at 2 o'clock on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. Thank you so much for your contribution so far, all of you who've been chatting away on YouTube and Facebook. And in the last 10-15 minutes, what we've covered is how society has changed when it comes to the context of marriages. We've looked at the influence of Western culture on arranged marriages. We looked at freedom of choice that people have now. I think we looked at the role of online dating, where certain websites, I won't give them a name, but a very popular Indian matrimonial site claims to have had 35 million people to connect. That's no small amount. That's that many people looking for a connection. Right? So there definitely is a role for arranged marriage somewhere. It's just that the context is changing a little bit. We looked at the changing definition of marriages, and we looked at the evolution of arranged marriages. I think today what people want is just consent, that the two people are happy to get married, even though it's arranged. And number two is that they're happy to get into the marriage. We looked at gender roles, like, traditional marriages were often upholding a traditional gender role. But with times changing now, how marriages are adapting. We looked at economic independence of women in today's time. And I think the last thing we can say is we looked at compatibility and passion, how modern societies often emphasize passion and love as the basis for a marriage. But arranged marriages are done on the priority of compatibility and shared values. So overall, we've had a really nice, healthy, rounded discussion on this topic. I'm going to give each one of our experts whatever time they need to sort of summarize share their final thoughts on this topic, and then we'll put an end to it and we'll move on to any other questions we may have. Viewers, in the meanwhile, please feel free to share your questions on anything to do with Hinduism in the chat area wherever you're watching. So, Sitaben, starting with you. Final
Yeah,
thoughts on today's topic.
no, I mean, it's been really interesting sort of discussing this topic because it's just a constantly evolving subject. You know, things have changed so much, even in the span of 5 years, 10 years, things keep continuing to change. And I think what's so important is that, you know, if you want to have a family, in a way, it takes a whole sort of community to get involved, to make society work and make things fruitful. So maybe we shouldn't just keep focusing on isolated little families. We should work together as a community and support each other in raising children and setting up new households, and just continue on in that way, whichever way it is. Vijay?
Yeah, I think as I agree with you that, you know, the thing is that we have to accept that things are changing. As you mentioned, there's LGBTQ, there's single motherhood. There's some ladies I know who have children, but they don't want to get married. So the key thing is, rather than vilify and say, look, oh, that person is not nice, is not following. If we can support them, all the better. As I said before, that these days there's so few children being born. It's really sad. I think every child is special. Doesn't matter the background, how the child is born, right? You know, it could be partners living together, they're separate because they don't agree and they have children. Key thing is, I think we should support all these kind of groups of people. If we do that, and the parents also, I think, should have an open mind. I know it's difficult, at least for my parents' generation. They would never accept this. Look, you know, if you're a single mother, you never got married, you didn't do a culture, tradition, you know, you give us a bad name, all this stuff. If we can get rid of this stigma of bad name, or this, you know, idea that, oh, you know, it kind of hurts my status in society, all that stuff, it'll make a big boost. I think we have to accept things are changing. And regarding the idea of marriage as well, there are, like, my kids ask me, marriage is just you know, a mechanical ceremony where people just sit and chat and, you know, eat and whatever. And then I have to explain, no, actually it's more than that. But if that's your mindset, then why are you going to have a marriage, right? You said, look, there's no point, right? Waste all this money, so people come and gossip and just chat. Might as well do a small ceremony and then just, you know, just live together. So there are all these, you know, myriad views and values which are coming up all the time, and some old ones, traditions, and some new ones. So people will have their own preference. But the key thing is, can we overcome that mindset, our traditional mindset, and try and open up a bit and support everybody, support our children and their children? I think that would be a good starting point. Manish?
I think Vijay, you really nailed it, because one of the big issues with arranged marriage is the stigma of divorce. And even in the UK now, the legal system is adapted. So what they've got now is the new no-fault divorce. Because otherwise, if you need to get a divorce, you need to show one party in a bad light. But you can have a divorce on an amicable split. You just drift apart and then you want a divorce. That's it. So there's now a new no-fault divorce where you don't have to blame the other person. Just say we're incompatible, we're going to split. So I think that society will adapt and change. Even the legal system is now catching up to it. It's just a matter of time, probably, and education. Manish bhai, sorry.
Yeah, it's just one thing to add. I think arranged marriage, love marriage, it's the most important thing is to finding the right person. And actually, you know, if you're a spiritual by nature, you want to find that spiritual partner that hopefully you can have the, you know, good companionship and progress your spiritual, make your spiritual progress. And I think it's quite hard to find that kind of match. And how do you do that? It's still a problem. So however you can find that suitable person for you, go for it. And all the ways are open, as Vijay said, and we need to be more open and accepting nowadays.
Somewhere between the club and the library, Vijay said, we'll find the right person. Awesome. So Manish bhai, do me a favor, just check on the chat area, put some questions from some of the people. Please post those next. I will just do a summary of the session today. So folks, thank you all so much for joining us today. We were discussing the concept of arranged marriages in the Hindu culture and how it is relevant in our modern society for today. So we began our session with a focus topic video which provided a good overview of what we're talking about and laid the foundation for a lively chat and a debate where we explored diverse aspects of arranged marriages, from historical significance and the role they played in maintaining a social structure, and to how they've adapted to today's changing society. We then delved into deeper debates like arranged marriages versus love marriages, weighing the pros and the cons, on how personal freedom, evolving gender roles influence this age-old tradition, and more. We also touched upon the influence of Western culture and globalization, the rise of online dating and matrimonial sites, and how they impact the concept of arranged marriages. So a significant part of the conversation was dedicated to how arranged marriages have evolved over the years, aligning with the modern ideas of consent, compatibility, and shared values. So we examined the implications of economic independence on the need for arranged marriages and the shift towards a more balanced society, not patriarchal. And we wrapped up the session now with this summary. And Manish Bhai, are we having any questions from the viewers?
Yes, Nishit Bhai, we have a couple of interesting points that we can cover. And one comment from Love Vivacity, I think it's Tushar Bhai, is Hindu family dynamics are very different in different parts of the UK. And I think in different parts of the world as well. And the thing was mainly, in olden times, the economics considerations was quite a big thing. And that governed the family dynamics. So mainly where people live, and if they are, economically challenging, then the choices they make will be different. So how does the economic circumstances force these choices, Vijay Bhai?
So, sorry, can you come again on the question again?
So the question is, because if you see olden times, the people were not as well-to-do, and hence the choices they had to make regarding the marriages, and once they married, they were stuck in it as well because they couldn't afford to, in a way, move out as well.
Yeah.
So
okay.
Is that still a relevant thing, and does the economics play a big part in these decisions?
So I think one thing to keep in mind is we have to keep this absolutely in our mind, is that nowadays women have equal right and equal role to play in any marriage. I mean, I've heard this, I'll be honest with you, when I talk to my cousins in India, once in a while they say, oh, we are in India, we are very good marriage, divorce is very low, you guys are high divorce. But actually what they're really saying is that women who are financially struggling can't escape a bad marriage. That's how I read it, sorry to say, right? So the thing is this, we have to accept that the dynamics is changing in the UK. And again, as you mentioned, it varies from place to place. So quite often, nowadays, women have the financial empowerment. If they're in a bad marriage, they can leave. I think that's a very good thing, right? So that's one thing. Regarding the financial issue, that's very true. Quite often we have a situation where financially they're very weak, so they can't escape. And that's why many women feel that, look, I have to get myself educated first, have a career for some financial independent, so I don't struggle if some things go wrong. And that's a genuine worry. We must keep that in mind, because a lot of women, I think from what I read articles about, they're really worried that I may get married and then I'm in a bad situation, and because I don't build my own career, I have no skills, I will struggle. And I think a lot of men need to accept that that's a genuine worry that a lot of girls and women have. But having said that, the question comes, does your career really struggle if you start your career late? I'll give you my own example. My wife Kanta, I mean, when she started, we decided she will study and have kids. So, I mean, by the time when I was 30, I had my last child, and she was in the mid-20s. We had all our 3 children. And then she started a career, and now she's absolutely flourishing with a career. She's, a certified accountant, and she's got a very fantastic job, and she enjoys it. She had a career late. So I think one thing to keep in mind is that because we have this, I guess, driving kind of, general stigma or stereotype that you must do your career first. That's not true. A lot of women start career late and they do remarkably well. So you can choose either. You can say, let me have a family first. But of course, in that case, you need support when kids are young so they can do a career. So if you get all this support, again, the thing is so critical. Support is so important. And Sita, I think, mentioned a couple of talks about human relationships are so important. They give you tremendous support. And if you have that kind of network, then I think you've kind of done really well. That's why I think when you say I'm individual, I do my own things. If you don't have that network, then I think you struggle in making, you won't have that many options, so to say. Yeah. Sita?
Yeah, I mean, not much more to add, really. I mean, I completely agree. And possibly the reason why the divorce rate was so low, like 50 odd years ago, is because women were stuck. They were stuck in the house. They didn't have a job. They didn't have a career. They had nowhere to go. They were stuck. And on top of that, there was the whole sort of social stigma, because back then it was much worse. Oh my God, you're getting divorced. It was awful, 50 odd years ago. So now things have changed. It's becoming more and more commonplace for people to say, let's live apart. We don't sort of get along with each other anymore. And as Nishit Bhai said, it doesn't have to be a blaming culture anymore. It can be very much that, we've just drifted apart, and we are both financially sound and we can live apart, and we want to part amicably. So I think that's a real sort of evolution in the way that we're thinking, and also this evolution that divorce doesn't mean you're a bad person. We have to get rid of this kind of stigma. It takes a long time for stigmas to move, but you don't know what kind of personal circumstances are going on, so you can't just judge somebody if they are divorced or not divorced.
That's very well put, Sita Ben. We take the next question from Trushar Patel. He's saying Hinduism says brahmacharya ashram to grihastha ashram. So how that working but not getting married fit in? So living together and not getting married, how does that fit in with Hindu idea of grihastha ashram? The desire stage is better in a dharmic framework. Is it not better in dharmic framework? Tusarva is asking. What's your thought on that, Sita Ben?
Yes, I mean, everyone is different. This is the thing. So obviously for people like us who've grown up in a very sort of spiritual or religious sort of environment, I think, marriage would be, a good sort of proposition, because you've got a solid foundation, you've got a legal contract, you're kind of binding, you're stuck with each other in a way. And in a way, you have to do whatever it takes to kind of make that marriage work. Whereas the downside of just living together is that it's very easy for one or the other partner to just walk away. And suppose you have children, it can have a tremendous impact on your children to have to then, the child is asking, why is my mum living here and why is my dad living here, and having to answer these very difficult questions. So the real benefit of having a marriage is that you are sort of, set for life. You're stuck. You have to try and figure out as best as you can, what's going to work for you and your family. Whereas if you're living together, it's much more fluid. You might be changing partners every year, who knows? And, there's no sort of legal contract binding you in. But if you have that legal framework or that dharmic framework, you're more likely to sort of put in the extra effort needed to sort of keep it going. But again, these things are incredibly subjective. And as I said, a few of my friends, they're living with their partners and they're totally happy in it. They're not changing partners at all. They're very happy and set in that way of thinking. So I guess every case is different. Vijay Bhai?
So I think, Tushar Bhai, you're right in the as for dharmic scriptures, dharmic framework. That's why we have these 4 ashrams, stages of ashrams, And the grihastha ashram was actually seen as carrying a burden, ironically, because you have the burden of society, because you support all the other 3 ashrams indirectly, because you work, you pay taxes, and you give charity goods. So in a way, it's it's a very good system. I guess preserving some of those core values of dharma would be good, because it helps you realize that in a grihastha ashram, you have to care for your parents, your children, and society at large. These are good values we can actually pick from that. But of course, we have to put in a modern context as well, right? And as you mentioned, there are some who would stay in the brahmacharya ashram. They would never move to grihastha ashram. They go back to sannyas. And there are very few in this world, very, very rare. But there are some people who are genuinely spiritual and they don't want to do that. So then you can do that step. And there are some others who actually will go to grihastha ashram and they live as partners, but they live celibate lives. We have examples of great spiritual giants like that. So in Hinduism, we have all these options. So it just what suits you best. But I think we have to be careful that The world is changing and things are changing. So yes, there are a lot of good things. We should use them, a dharmic framework where we can, and where we can't, we have to evolve and change.
Hey,
Very nice.
sorry.
Go on, Manish bhai.
One last question from Tushar again. So he's saying arranged marriages depend heavily on relationships, abilities, and outreach of the parents, family, friends, and community. So arranged marriage is dependent on parents and people, close relatives around you. And nowadays, even that dynamic is changing, and the people you have relations with is narrowed down as well. So in a way, you narrowed your circle. So it will be affected in that sense, Vijay bhai.
No, and I agree with you, Manish. Yes, I mean, this huge, I know in my own community, we actually, by the way, just as Nishit mentioned, we do have a dating agency within our own community as well. So we have this Patel community from Kutch, these 24 villages, and they do get together. They do arrange this, I think, every year, 2-3 times. And people just turn up who are single, divorced, whatever, and even single mothers, and they try and get people to match. So in a way, it's like a second time arranged marriage. And you see, that's a good thing because society has changed. They know this is happening. So even in that situation, it's a very good support. Yeah, it's not just when you're getting very frustrated. Even afterwards, I mean, you have many situations. Maybe some are young widows, some, as you say, are compatible. Then the society helps them, and society has realized that actually they need our support. So in a way, it's a very good. So I would say that even if you're not arrangement, it's like a dating app because you don't know who's going to be there. You just turn up, right? That's how it works, at least in my community. And you just turn up and you talk and chat and you work out. So yeah, so in a way, even I think the communities are kind of getting hang of this modern technology, modern ways of doing things, which I think is a good thing. Sita?
Yeah, I mean, not much more to add. I mean, I just think the more people you have supporting you in your sort of big life decisions, the better. It helps you to make a better decision. It helps you think things through more carefully. So I think it's a very valuable thing rather than just making that decision in an isolated way, for sure.
Amazing. So, Vijay Bhai used to say, if you want to communicate with the youngsters of today, use the medium that they use. So I think we have to adapt and communicate with them in the medium that they use. So, folks, that was a fantastic session. And as we conclude, I'd like to remind you that our Basics of Hinduism course is now available for free. All you have to do is go to the hindu-academy.com website, sign up for this course. It will provide you a structured approach to understanding the basics of Hinduism. And we strongly encourage you all to sign up. And even if you signed up to our earlier course, sign up to this one because it is on a new platform. And hopefully you will have a refresher of the whole course. Remember to also continue our learning and discussion beyond this platform. We are now at 121,000 subscribers on YouTube. When I started working with J-Bhai, we were at 12,500. So a very good progress to the whole Hindu Academy team, and especially a huge thank you to you, our viewers, our subscribers, for giving us your support all the way through. And I hope that you continue to share our videos with your friends, family, and let's keep this conversation going. Don't forget to tune in next week at 2 o'clock when we'll have another thought-provoking discussion for you. And as we part ways today, let's reflect on a profound quote from Swami Vivekananda, who is a key figure in the introduction of Hindu philosophies of Vedanta and yoga to the Western world. He said that in a conflict between the heart and the brain, follow your heart. And this quote reminds us of one of the importance of personal feelings and intuition in making significant life decisions, such as choosing a life partner, regardless of whether it is an arranged marriage or a love marriage. So until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and continue your journey of learning. And namaste from the whole team here at Hindu Academy. We wish you a great week ahead. Bye-bye for now.